Shalom everyone, and today we are learning Parashat Yitro, a very important parasha, maybe, not maybe, for sure the most important parasha of them all, because it talks about Mount Sinai revelation, which means basically the essence, the main pillar of the five books of Moses. It's in this parasha. Uh, so what we need to learn in this parasha is something very crucial. And that's a question that there's no way that a normal human being, does not have this question. The question is, why is there injustice? Uh, why do good people suffer? Why do bad things happen to good people? Uh, why does not God does not intervene? And all of these questions, I think you got the message. Why the world is so sometimes so upsetting. The more you know, the more upset you get, or you get very frightened because you get really disappointed. Because wherever you go, you see chaos, you see problems, you see a mess, you see injustice and pain and misery. And, most people cannot deal with that. And the result is that most people are either upset, depressed, whatever. And the most important of them all, most people do not behave by, how would they say? Most people do not behave by the real uh, moral code of behavior. And how do I know most people? Because, everybody talks about how evil everybody else. Why is it that nobody apologizes for being evil himself? And basically, the key answer and the healing for that question is in this parasha, because that is the only story of Mount Sinai revelation. And let us understand that from the Zohar itself. Parashat Yitro, verse 9 in Hasulam commentary. And I'll read first from the original text itself in Aramaic. Tachazai, come and see. ברזה דקדושה הוא מלך וכהן, ומשמש תחתי. בין לעילה בין לטאטה, אית מלך לעילה, דהוא רזה דקודש הקודשים. והוא מלך עילאה ותחותי אית כהן רזה דאור קדמה. דקה משמש קמי ודאי הוא כהן, דיקרא גדול, סיטרא דימינה. Translation, come and see. In the secret of the holiness, there's a king. Let me try to explain. When we are talking about the structure of the universe, beyond what we see with our senses and our logic, there are two systems that are both operating in this universe we are part of. One is called the system of Kedusha, translated as holiness, which is a problem because you have to understand English was not meant to give precise definition of the metaphysical universe. We're talking about Kedusha. Kedusha means holiness, means also sacred in English, but it really means the system that functions in a perfect state. And that's why, if you try to define holiness or a holy person, a lot of people that were defined as holy, they did a lot of unholy stuff. So what makes somebody holy? And The answer is that when someone or there is something in this universe that is functioning in a perfect state. What does it mean, a perfect state? When you study Kabbalah, you understand that in order to connect to the force that gives life to everything, which means the force that gives us fulfillment, happiness, success, to be in the zone, wellness, that force, the light of the Creator, must be delivered, funneled to our realm, because the realm of the physical existence is not the only realm in the universe. There are many realms above our realms. What does it mean? It's another universe that is connected to our universe, but on a higher frequency. Now, that universe that funnels the forces of life into our universe, when we are talking about connecting to that realm, there's a law that is called the law of affinity, which means similarities attract. Okay, which means if you want to bring water to your house, you need to have a water system that is made of pipes by code. Otherwise, your house is not going to be connected to the water system. But if you make a system of wires, USB wires, the whole house, and you try to connect that system to the water system in the neighborhood, that won't connect. Why? Similarities attract. They are not in the same structure, purpose, whatever, because the USB electric system that you can create in your house cannot funnel the water from the pipes of the water system of the county or the city, whatever. Why? That's how it works. You want water to flow through your system in the house to the taps and whatever water that is needed in the house, you need to connect it with a system of pipes that are structured by code so they can deliver, funnel water and with the water pressure of the system in your neighborhood. Very simple. And if you do not have a system like this, you cannot be connected. Oh, of course, you can have a pirate connection. The result will be usually disastrous because pipes will burst when the water won't reach wherever it needs to reach. There won't be enough pressure. Chaos. Why chaos? Because this is how this universe works. Now, the same way, in order to connect to the system and pipes of the tree of life, that is a system of a flow of the light force and the life force of everything, you need to have inside yourself the same or the similar system that is by the same code. And that is called Kedusha. Kedusha does not mean holy. Kedusha means a frequency in which there is a circuitry in which you have like in electricity, the plus, the minus, you, according by code. Which code? There is the code of the tree of life system. You want to hook up with that system, you need to have a similar system built inside yourself. Okay? If you are not building that system inside yourself, don't be too surprised that you're not aligned, attached to the network of the tree of life. This is a very precise, simple logic. Okay? Very precise, very simple logic. The question is like this: if it's precise and simple, could have been that a lot of people heard about it along history. Why is it that most people have no idea what I'm talking about? And they have all kinds of definitions what holy means, depends what religions they are connected to or they are against or they hate. It doesn't matter because it's almost the same. Because the definition in your mind, in your consciousness of something, who created that definition? You know, when somebody is saying, I don't believe in God, what is the God that you don't believe in? Okay? Who created that image of God in your mind? Your kindergarten teacher, your parents, your grandparents. What is there? Rabbi Ashlag, the founder of the Hasidic, of the Kabbalistic modern movement, is saying, what is the background and the theological uh, expertise of those people that created that image that you call God, that you like or dislike, whatever, in your mind? For most people, the image of God they have in mind has nothing to do with the way God is. And if we start with God, then everything that derives from that idea, holiness, this holy, something that is unholy, Satan, demons, whatever you call them, how do you really know that what you heard being a baby, a child, a toddler, and maybe a growing up kid, and maybe even later on, how do you know? How can you trust those people that taught you that way, that they really know what they're doing? If you think about it, no, you can't. And that's one of the reasons so many people are in trouble. And the main idea is, first of all, you know, if there is a system that is called Kedusha, which is a system of the tree of life, which is a system that funnels the flow of good fortune, which is called in Hebrew mazal. And again, you see how problematic it is to translate to English. Because when you ask most people who studied some Hebrew how to translate mazal into English, they say luck. But luck in English is a definition of something that is of a very, uh, very misleading nature because nobody knows exactly what are the probabilities of luck. You know, there's nobody can define that. Some people are lucky, some people are not lucky, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's a definition usually that I heard from people speaking English. In Hebrew, a lot of people just borrowed the meaning from English or European languages usually into Hebrew, but that's not what it means in Hebrew. In Hebrew, the word mazal comes from the shoresh, the source, nun zayin lamed, which means flow. And that means when is it that you have flow? When you are connected to the kedusha, to the tree of life system. Okay? When you're not connected to the tree of life system, then you don't have mazal. There's nothing of luck in mazal. It's a matter of cause and effect. You create the proper system in yourself, then you can attach to the network, and then you can experience the flow in your life. It's a feeling, it's a well-being, it's everything that connects to what is called high quality life. Nothing to do with probabilities or random, nothing to do with that. Nothing is random in this universe, nothing. Everything is connected to a very precise system of laws, the same way it is in physics, astronomy, biology, ecology, every aspect that humans studied along the last few centuries, the results were always there are very organized systems, and humanity managed to give formulas to a lot of phenomena or processes that human beings can witness, watch, or be aware of in the universe around us. And that could be from quantum physics till the laws of Newton, and in optics or in uh, momentum and all kind of stuff like this. So when we are talking about Kedusha, we are talking about there are laws also that relate to the quality of life of human beings. And that modern science is starting, according to my poor knowledge, is starting to research only since around the year 2000. There were research before, but it was not that intense and that broad. And you can start realizing that what the Torah, the Kabbalists were talking about for many years, it's not a belief system. It is describing a very precise system of forces and their flow, which is called mazal. So when we are talking about the system of kedusha, which means the system where things are flowing aligned with the spiritual world of perfection and precision, that's called kedusha. In that system, the Zohar says there is a king and there is a Kohen, a high priest. Of course, the names king and priest, they're basically borrowing from our experience to the forces that those king and priest represent from the spiritual world beyond our physical perception. This universe is very important to our well-being because when we are aligned with that universe, then we have better flow, mazal, good fortune, good flow, and things are going much better. Why is it so important to talk about it? Remember, Mount Sinai revelation is in this Parashah. In Mount Sinai revelation, I'm giving you a spoiler. When we come to the end of this class, we are going to read how the millions of Israelites experiencing Mount Sinai revelation, basically what they experience is the ability to see the connection between all the systems and how they work. They basically saw that there's no random, there's no probabilities. We are talking about precise systems that when you follow them, you achieve connection to the network of the tree of life. And the result is that you achieve kedusha. What does it mean? Flow. It means perfection. It means productivity. It means being able to achieve well-being, happiness, fulfillment, whatever we wish for. Okay. So the Zohar continues. There is a king above in the realm, the metaphysical realm beyond our physical perception, which is the secret of the Holy of Holies. And this is called the Supreme King. This is not God. This is a realm. This is a frequency, a level that is called the Upper King. It's not the king of the universe. Okay? This is the king, basically in the realm of the metaphysical universe that feeds our universe, feeds our human souls. Underneath the king, there is a Kohen, which means what we're talking. We're talking about frequencies, and this is the secret of the first light that serves the supreme king. Which means it's like if I'm talking about the way the Zohar explained it, we can borrow it to our way. Let's say you live in a certain town and you build a new house, and now you want to connect to the water system. Okay, assuming there's a water system. So now the Supreme King is in many towns still you have a water tower, which is a great water pool. That water pool is getting through pumps water from water resources. Somewhere it could be in the mountains, some it could be like wells in the underground, but there's a water tower. The water tower controls all the flow because all the flow comes from the water tower. That is the Supreme King, which means it's not the original source, but relatively to the houses and customers of water in that region, this is the source. I don't know where the water tower is getting its source, its water, but I know I'm getting my water from the water tower. So, and there is the Kohen, the priest. What is the priest doing? These are the water pipes that are leading the water from the water tower into the customer, the end, and finally through other pipes into the end user. In the same way, the Zohar continues. In our physical world, in our physical dimension, why is called a physical dimension? Well, it's the dimension that we can see, understand, feel, and define with our five senses. Whatever we see, it doesn't mean that that's what there is. Science already told us that, correct? Can we see the whole spectrum of electromagnetic radiation? No. We can see only from red to like on the border of infrared to ultraviolet. That's the boundaries. Are there more frequencies in the electromagnetic fields and frequencies? Of course there are. We see only a very narrow band. For most of the history of humanity, most people were aware only of what our eyes can see. Today, we know that the band is much, much broader. And we also, science build systems that can basically create and read those frequencies. All kinds of radio, X-rays, it's huge. The fact we didn't see them, we didn't know about them till not long ago, it means that they didn't exist. Of course they did. It means they didn't affect us. Of course they did affect us. And there are frequencies, what Kabbalah is teaching us, and many, many systems of wisdom around the world, there are frequencies and forces science did not get yet. Okay? Science is very young. The modern science, relatively to the history of humanity, very young. Okay. So, the same way as it says, as above, so below, there is also a priest serving the king in the physical world. And then comes the big story. Not just that there is a system of Kedusha. We had a question. The question was, why do bad things happen to good people? why there's so much injustice, why we can't understand how this universe functions. And the answer is the two systems. One system is called Kedusha, and the other one is the system of darkness, evil. One of the names of the system is On. You know, like turning something on, O-N. You can spell it, but it's pronounced as On, O-N. And so when you're on, what are you on? What did you turn on? The dark system or the Kedusha system? Okay, what's in the dark system? If we said that the Kedusha system has perfection, how do we define perfection? So we describe that during the whole book of Genesis, that the Kedusha system is being, we can connect to it through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what does it mean? That when we operate, think, desire, dream about, or have any ambition about anything, we need to understand that three forces we have to activate inside our consciousness. One is chesed, grace, giving, love, kindness. One is gevurah, judgment, which means boundaries, and also fire, which means desire, ambition, need, want. And the third one is the synthesis of both forces, which means in order to reach Kedusha, you need to have all three forces being activated in every action, in every thought. Not so easy, which means when you want to achieve greatness, you have to really mean that, want it with passion. At the same time, you must synthesize it with the desire and the vision to do good for others. Why? Because the same way in electricity, you want to go on the grid, you need to have the plus, minus, and a kind of a resistor in every electric device. Okay, if one of them is damaged, you don't have any work done. You have what's called short circuit, whatever, destruction, disaster. Okay, so in order for the human being to connect to the system of Kedusha, we need to exercise and be very serious about it, the three forces that are represented by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The giving, the caring, genuine love and sharing. In the same time, big desire, big ambition, genuine need to grow and to achieve and to get and to receive God's light. And the third force is the ability to synthesize both into one pumping force that is not evil, that is, on one hand, full of love and grace and care. On the other hand, it's about growing oneself and achieving greatness and fulfillment and happiness, which means, on one hand, you really care about your share in the universe, which is to achieve God's light and fulfillment. On the other hand, knowing that that can be achieved only when you do it while doing something good for others. Okay, and that's called, as Rabbi Ashlag put it together in a very precise definition, the desire to receive for the sake of giving, which means when I want to be happy, I know I need to be involved in making other people happy. When I want to be successful, I have to know that that has to go together with in bettering other people's well-being. So if I try to like in some spiritual, religious, or metaphysical system, if I try to shut down my desire to achieve success, I'm denying the system of Kedusha. Why? Same thing with electricity. You cannot have anything working on the plus. Impossible. You need to have the plus and the minus at the same wavelength, at the same capacity. So, what is the other system? The system of on, the system that we can call the impure system. It's the easiest way to translate it. The dark side. The dark side works on high and by, which means I want, I do whatever I want to get it, I get it, I'm satisfied, and then I burn down. And that's why you see in this world a lot of times that we achieve what we think is what we want and need, and then it lasts for 10 minutes, half an hour, maybe a few days, not too long. And then it replaces with another emptiness, another darkness, and upset. Why? Because this is the dark system. The dark system is the system that is trying to hack into the system, the holy system, without the regulations, without the code. What is the result? Same thing with electricity. You try to connect to the system, but your own system, in your own household is not by code. You're not using the proper wires, and so on and so forth. And the result is that the house can go on fire. So in the beginning, you think that you somehow tricked the system, but basically it doesn't work. And it works only for a short while. Short while could be minutes, seconds, days, sometimes years. And then poof, the great success turns out to be a big, big mistake. So, a human being, the Zohar is teaching us, is structured of both systems. Exactly the both systems. We have parts of our personality and our own consciousness that belong to the Kedusha. Every human being. We have parts in our system that belongs to the other side, the dark side. Okay? And that is for the purpose of giving us free will. So let's go on and understand how is that connected to the parasha. So the question was, why is it that Yitro, the father-in-law of Moses, got a whole parasha after his name, while he's not even one of the Israelites? More than that, that's the most important parasha of the whole Torah, Mount Sinai revelation, and the two tablets. And the understanding is, verse 12, הסוד הדבר, בשעה שמלך הזה וכהן הזה דסתרא אחא נכנעים ונשברים. אז כל צדדים האחרים נכנעים ומודיעים לו לקדוש ברוך הוא. אז הקדוש ברוך הוא משה לבדו למעלה ולמטה, כפי שאמר ונשגב אדוני לבדו ביום ההוא. Okay. If every human being has the Kedusha system inside himself, that means that we all deep inside, we have moments of clarity of knowing exactly that stealing is not right, that killing is not right, that not being honest is not right. There are many, many things that we're not supposed to do. Deep inside, we know that. However, we have also the dark side. And the dark side is trying to get easy way in achieving stuff, making shortcuts, free lunches. Well, it doesn't work this way. We have a fight, and that fight is called the fight between the evil inclination and the good inclination. Basically, the two systems operate within each other, within us, and that is what we are humans doing on Earth. We are the arena of the fight of the two systems. Now, you want to know why there is injustice in the world, why there is hunger in the world? When I was young, I thought hunger, I was very, that's what you hear at school. That's what the things are very, very kind of, what should be the word? Naive. The system, the education system never tells you what life is really about. And then I thought, with my own naivete, that, you know, if you want to do something good, feeding people is a great thing. So I studied genetics of wheat. Why? Wheat is one of the major sources of nutrition for humanity. So after years of studying and working in one of the most important laboratories of wheat genetics in the world, at that time it was, I don't know yet now, but it was in Tel Aviv University. Why in Tel Aviv? Because you have to understand the wild wheat grows in Israel. That's where the wild wheat came from. And then it was cultivated and then started to go through the genetic transformation. The wheat that we know today is originated from Israel and its surrounding. So it's easier to do the research genetically in Israel. So after years of studying, and I decided to study Kabbalah, and then I opened my eyes, and I realized that humanity can grow more food than we can eat. Did you know that? I realized later on we have enough resources, humanity and technology, to build housing for every living human being. More than that, we can get people to live a very high life standard everywhere along the planet. We have the means. So why we don't do that? Because of greed, because of people being simply either not just greedy, sometimes really either stupid or worse, I don't know, stupidity leads to evil. And that's why they're suffering. And where is that coming from? It's coming from the dark side. It's not coming from inability, simply the dark side. When people follow their dark side, they won't share. They will take always more than they need. I don't know if you've been to a buffet meal. When people take mountains of food just because they can, and they eat only a very small fraction of that. And you ask yourself, why do they do that? Why do you load so much on the plate? Maybe it won't be left for others. Who cares? Maybe I will be hungry and what I took is not enough. So I take 3 times, 4 times what I really need. Why people do that? And why do people do that? Because when the dark system takes over, then you do all kinds of illogical stuff that messes up your life. You think it messes up other people's lives. Who cares? No, you first of all mess up your own life. Why? Because when you allow the dark system to take over, you just unsubscribe to the Kedusha system. And then away with well-being, away with real flow of mazal, away with real fulfillment. It's only temporary. It's only superficial. It's only short-lived. And you're always surprised why it doesn't work. So how do we achieve great life? And the answer is very simple. Verse 13 in the Zohar. כן זה וסוד זה ממש עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא בארץ, ששבר מלך זקן וכסיל וזהו פרעה. The whole story of the nation of Israel fighting through Moses and Aaron, Pharaoh in Egypt, that is basically an imitation, a story that basically imitate the real fight that is happening daily, hourly in each human being. We have Moses and Aaron and the Israelites on one side. We have Pharaoh and the priest of on the dark side, and they fight. And this is the eternal fight inside every human being. So when Pharaoh was broken, because בשעה שבא משה לפרעה, when Moses came to Pharaoh, ואמר, and he said, אלוקי העברים נקרא אלינו, the God of the Hebrews appeared to us, פתח ואמר, לא ידעתי את השם. What did Pharaoh says? I don't know Hashem. I don't know the God of the 5 books of Moses. I don't know what we call the Tetragrammaton. I don't know. And why did he say it? He said it not because he was stupid. He said it because in his realm, he did his best to block that flow into the universe. And that's what's happening in each one of us daily, hourly, every minute, every second. And therefore, the whole story was when God is giving 10 plagues to Pharaoh, it was a very simple thing. Giving the 10 plagues to Pharaoh was eternal signal to giving the plagues to our own personal Pharaoh. And as we spoke about it previously, we are in the time of Shovavim, from the beginning of the book of Exodus, and every person has to see himself that he's getting out of Egypt. And that's why the Exodus is mentioned so many times in each daily prayer that we pray. The prayers for the food, the prayers for the daily worship and connection to God. Why? Because we are on the journey that is trying to emulate the Exodus daily. What does it mean? When Pharaoh and the priest of On, the priest of the dark system, they are broken, then a human being, only then, a human being is capable of realizing the Kedusha. Only then. Why? Because the noise, if you read the book of Professor Daniel Kahneman, the noise is all of that, this is scientific already, all of that emotional chaos that is running inside our minds and our bellies and makes the most intelligent, educated people behave in the most stupid way. You ask yourself so many times, the people that are so smart, they have such a high IQ, they are very wise, knowledgeable people. They have maybe a lot of scientific titles and whatever, you name it. And you can see them in front of your face making disastrous decisions. So what is the reason for that? And Professor Kahneman, he got the Nobel Prize for that in 2002. Noise, emotional noise. The IQ is not good enough. You need SQ, spiritual quotas. Spiritual quotas is the ability that what we are being presented over here in Parashat Yitro is the ability not just to nullify the noise of the dark side, hatred, fear, upset, greed, passion for nonsense or unholy passion, All of this debilitates the most brightest human being. Why? So we have free will. And when we shut down our own Pharaoh and our own priest of On, there's quietness. As we studied last week, when we can quiet the mind, when we can quiet the belly, when we can quiet the dark side, we can hear the voice of God. We can see the sight of God. And suddenly, we're smart. And more than smart, we are lucky, not lucky. We have mazal. Why? Because then we align ourselves with the Kedusha, and everything that is good flows into our heart, our immune system, our bodies, our minds, and we find ourselves like in a total different state of intelligence. It's a different intelligence. This is the intelligence of the Kedusha, circuitry, perfection, being connected to the real zone. What is that zone? The out-of-the-box zone, the zone of the Kedusha. So, so the Zohar continues. So then what happened is that when Yitro, who was Kohen On, he was, Pharaoh was broken. He didn't want to listen. He needed to go through the 10 plagues and then the splitting of the Red Sea and the plagues of the Red Sea. And then he said, God is righteous and I am the sinner. Okay. Yitro, who was the infamous high priest of the dark side, how does the parasha start? That's Exodus 18, verse 1. Vaishma Yitro Kohen Midian. And Yitro, the priest of Midian, and Midian is also called for judgments, heard. He heard. So when we reach a place in which the king and the priest of the dark side are transformed and they finally hear, we're talking about our own inner consciousness. When we can finally hear and see, that is when we start to function in a way that leads us to the real, true goals of happiness, fulfillment, good fortune, flow, and the proper, normal lifestyle. And as always asking, because Yitro heard and he turned around and he heard and he said he's coming to Mount Sinai, okay? And he says to Moses, uh, let's see, we're in verse 9. Vayichad Yitro al kol hatova. Yitro was happy of all the greatness that happened to the Israelites and that they were saved from the Egyptians. And he says, verse 10, Baruch Adonai asher yitzil etchem. Blessed is God, Hashem, that saved you from under Egypt and from Pharaoh. Ata yadati, verse 11, Ata yadati ki gadol Adonai mikol haElohim. Now I know that Hashem, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, is greater than all other gods. So the question is like this, that the Zohar is asking. Verse 28 in the Zohar. Listen to that carefully because it will answer you a lot of questions. שואל וכי יתרו שמע בכל העולם לא שמעו. So he's asking, Yitro heard, and the rest of the world did not hear? והרי כתוב שמעו עמים ירגזון. It says in the Song of the Sea, nations heard, nations heard, and they got upset, which means the message of what happened in Egypt, the 10 plagues and the splitting of the Red Sea, that spread all over the world and got people really upset. And we hear that when the spies, I'm talking about the spies that Joshua is sending to Jericho. If you know the story, beginning of the book of Joshua, he's sending Caleb and Pinchas. And Rachav is saying the whole world heard about what you did to Egypt. The 10 plagues, the splitting of the Red Sea, everybody heard. So everybody did hear. So the Zohar is saying, only Jethro, only Yitro heard? What about the rest of the world? They didn't hear? והכתוב, we know, they heard. הוא משיב and he answers, אלא כל העולם שמעו, the whole world heard, ולא נשבעו. But their evil was not broken. They heard. They got kind of upset about it. They didn't break down. They stayed connected to their dark side. And therefore, they didn't really hear. And Jethro, Yitro, והוא שמע ונשבר ונכנע. He heard, he broke down, and he submitted to the God of the creator of the universe. He broke down in front of the holy blessed be he. And that brought him into the love and awe of the creator. Because there, and therefore, he really is the only one who really heard. So, that will give you an answer. A lot of people, including each one of us, know many times exactly what's the right thing to do. But we don't break down. We prefer to follow the noise, the need, the lust, the greed, the whim. We prefer to follow what is called our dark kingdom. Pharaoh is ruling. The priest of On is following him, and we are totally submitted to their rule and control. How do we break that control? So, as I said, it happens to all of us. We know deep inside what to do. We know what's right and what's wrong in many times, but we don't do that. It's like we heard God, but we didn't break down. We, in this life, in order to earn the connection to Kedusha, the connection to the tree of life, we need to break Pharaoh and the priest of On inside us. And therefore, in order to do that, we have to follow simply the rules. Which rules? Oh, and now we come to the what another thing that is very important to realize. וישמע יתרו, verse 40 in הסולם commentary of the Zohar. פתח ואמר, על כן עודך בגויים השם ולשמך אזמרה. This is a verse from Psalms 18. When King David is saying, I will thank you among the nations, and I'll sing, bring praises to your name. King David said that, the Zohar says, in the Holy Spirit. when? בשעה שראה שכבוד הקדוש ברוך הוא אינו עולה בהתעלות ואינו מתייקר בעולם, אלא מצד שאר העמים. The honor, the glory of God can be really reign only when the nations break down and accept him. We have to understand, in every one of us, there is that aspect that is called the children of Israel. In each one of us, there is that aspect that is called the nations. Our goal is because this is internal and this is external. In every person, Jew or non-Jew, we all have the two sides. Why? Because our job in this world is to receive the infinite light of the Creator. And therefore, in order to supply us with that light, with that pleasure, with that power, we are connected naturally to the system of the Kedusha, the tree of life. However, we have also the dark side, so when we connect to Kedusha, to real holiness, it's because we earned it by breaking down our own Pharaoh and Kohen on. Because, which means, ואם תאמר, הרי הקדוש ברוך הוא אינו מתייקר בעולם, אלא בשביל ישראל. But, the holy, blessed be he, the creator of the universe, he has enough when Israel, the nation of Israel, worship him. He says, no. In a way, yes, because Israel is the foundation of the candle to shine. But when the other nations, only when all nations come and admit and accept the precious light of the Creator, only then that candle can really shine. And therefore, I'll explain. Verse 41. כל העולם נפל עליהם פחד ואימה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, כשבעת ששמעו הניסים של יציאת מצרים. The whole world heard about the miracles of the Exodus. כיוון שבא יתרו, and not just they heard, they were shocked with fear and terror when they heard what happened to Egypt. כשבא יתרו, שהוא כומר עליון של כל אלוהים אחרים, when Yitro was the great priest, the pope of all idol-worshipping system, and admitted and broke down before God, אז התחזק ושלט כבוד הקדוש ברוך הוא על הכל. Then the glory of God ruled supreme. Verse 42. משום שכל העולם כששמעו שם גבורתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא זר, וכולם הם מסתכלים ביתרו. Everybody saw that what Yitro did. He was, as I said, infamous. He was very, very, very known everywhere. Everybody shook when they saw Yitro crossing the lines. That he was wise, he was responsible for all the idol-worshipping systems in the world. כיוון שראו שהוא בא ועובד לקדוש ברוך הוא, because they came and they saw he's worshiping God, ואמר, and he said, now I know that God is the real one, אז נתרחקו כולם עבודתם. They got a little bit away from their own idol worshipping. However, what happened was that it didn't last too long. And what does that mean? They went back to their old belief systems. The same way, by the way, the Israelites, after Mount Sinai revelation, 40 days later, they made the golden calf. Because the moment you go back into the fight, it's not easy. It's a serious fight, which means what the Zohar is saying, the world heard, but was not broken. In order for us to basically get to the truth, get to the real tree of life system, and connect to the zone, we need to be broken. You can see it in the history of people who achieved greatness. You can go to people like Lincoln, President Lincoln, or Tony Robbins, people who had to be broken into pieces with so many troubles, so their Pharaoh and the Kohen On are broken. So the holiness, the Kedusha can come out. And suddenly you know stuff and you follow it. You're not shutting it down. You're really capable of listening. I'm not saying that each one of them turn into a saint, but there are many things we know what to do. We don't do that. What does it mean? We're not listening. We heard, but we don't listen because the message is being there all the time. So why there's evil? Not because people don't know. It's because they don't listen. So how do you heal that blindness and deafness? How do you heal that? So that's what we read in the Zohar, verse 331. בכמה דרכים מעידה התורה באדם שלא יחטא לפני אדונו. The Torah is testifying or warning every person not to sin. בכמה דרכים נותנת לו עצה שלא יסור מדרכיו לימין ושמאל. In how many ways the Torah is giving an advice not to go astray, not to go to the right, too much chesed, just chesed, I'm only a giver, I'm not here to take. That's wrong. You're a human being, God created you to take. And not to the left. I'm here only to take. I'm not giving. Not to the right, not to the left. בכמה דרכים נותנת לו עצה, in how many ways the Torah is giving the advice. How? איך לשוב לפני אדונו, how to come back to connect to his master. וימחול לו, and he will be forgiven. It's not a matter of convincing God. No. You cannot convince God. He's crazy about you. He created you to receive infinite light and pleasure and wisdom and so on. You just need to return to him. Come back to him. For that, you need to smite your own Pharaoh, your own priest of honor. That's your job. How are you going to do that? Verse 332. שלמדנו 613 מיני עצות, said Rabbi Yehuda. 613 different kinds of advices נותנת התורה לאדם להיות שלם עם אדונו. 613 different kinds of advices the Torah is giving for the person to be complete, perfect with his master. You want Kedusha? You want to be in the zone? You want the flow of good fortune, good luck, well-being? You need to create that perfect frequency inside yourself. Where are you going to take the advice to do that? From the Torah. It's not a commandment. Commandments belong, the Zohar and the Talmud said the word commandment belongs to the dark side. Unfortunately, many religions call Mount Sinai revelation the Ten Commandments. The word commandment does not appear there. Only dibrot, utterances, speech, words, translation of 10 dibrot. Why? This is a correction of Be'asara Ma'amarot. When you read Genesis chapter 1, you can find 10 times, and God said. How did he say? He has no mouth. There was no ear to listen. You know, saying is a statement. God gave the world through the tree of life, 10 forces, emanations of life. That's called the tree of life. Humanity destroyed the access to the tree of life through the sins of Adam and all the generations that followed till Mount Sinai revelation. The plagues destroyed not the Egyptians, them, but also the dark side of every Israelite. The result was it was a quick fix. Why? To show humanity that there's another dimension. And the 10 plagues took maybe around a year. Okay? And then after the 10 plagues, 7 weeks in the desert, and then eating the manna and the water that came out of the stone to purify the Israelites. So when they came to Mount Sinai, they were ready. They were united. They were willing to give up hatred, envy. They were purified, which means they destroyed their Pharaoh. Of course, that was a huge intervention from above. Why? Just in order to impress that ability that are human beings who made it. And if they made it once, it can be made again by each one of us. Remember that. The Israelites who accepted the idea of loving others as you love yourself. How do you know? It says very clearly. It says when Israel came to Mount Sinai and he camped in front of the mount. It doesn't say they, it says he camped. Who's he? It was the whole nation. Rashi says, the commentary is saying, Ke'ish echad belev echad, like one person, one heart. Which means when you smite, when you destroy with the power of the Torah, when you smite and destroy the Pharaoh, the Egypt, the priest of On inside you, you will realize you're capable of listening. And then what happens? Because of that unity of almost 3 million people that gave up selfishness, cruelty, just accepted the idea that if you want to have a great life, you accept the idea that you have to have other people achieve great lives too. That we are all in it together as one. And all of that nonsense of the noise of fear, anxiety, enviness, hatred, the inability to forgive and forget, and to tolerate a human being that is not like you. They were cleansed so they can hear. And when they came to that moment, we can read those magical words of the Zohar, verse 296. אמר רבי אבא, כתיב וכל העם רואים את הקולות. And it says, and the whole nation is seeing the voices. A second, that's in. Okay, this is just at the end of the 10 Dibrot, utterances, sayings, never commandments. Chapter 20, verse 15. וכל העם רואים את הקולות, and the whole nation see the voices. Human beings cannot see voices. ואת הלפידים and the torches, ואת כל השופר and the voice of the sound of the shofar. What's the power of the shofar? To balance and to break the dark side, the judgment. וירא וינו. How could they see the voices? שומעים היה צריך לומר, it should be said, Zohar 2:96, it should be said, hear the voices. ומשיב ולקח למדנו, we learned, אלו הקולות היו נחקקים בחושך. They could see the voices in the darkness. How can you see voices in darkness? The next verse, 297, וכולם היו רואים פנים בפנים, and everybody could see face to face. As it says, God spoke to you face to face. ומי היו רואים? Who did they see? תני רבי יוסי was saying, מהארת קולות הללו, they saw the shining of those voices. Voices shine? שמסתכלים בכל הגנוזות, and they saw all the hidden wisdom. וכל הנסתרות, וכל הדורות שיבואו, and all the generations till the Messianic age. They saw all the secrets of the universe. What no other generation saw. Verse 298. They saw more than the prophet Ezekiel. In his great, amazing prophecy. And then we cannot without verses 342, שלמדנו, as we learned, בשעה שהקדוש ברוך הוא נתגלה והתחיל לדבר, העליונים והתחתונים התחלחלו. When God started to speak, the upper worlds and the lower worlds shook. ויצאו נשמות ישראל, and the souls of the nation of Israel left their bodies. It was all an out-of-body experience. And we learned, למדנו, מילה היא הייתה פורחת מלמעלה למטה ונחקקה בארבע רוחות העולם, and every word that came down from above was engraved in the stone of the two tablets, while all hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of souls witnessing that, experiencing that, feeling that, not with senses, were partners with that. Verse 344. אמר רבי שמעון said, כל מילה ומילה הייתה מלאה בכל הטעמים, בכל אלו דברי גזרות, שכר ועונש. Every word was full of all reasons, decrees, reward, and punishment. סודות וסתרים, secrets, כי האוצר הזה המלא מכל, like a big, full treasure. What happened on Mount Sinai? The Israelites experienced the Torah as the rules of the universe, not as a whim of a God that in order to test his followers is giving them all kinds of hard commandments to follow. You know, it has to be hard because you have to show your loyalty. No, they saw basically the matrix, the code of the whole universe. They realize this is not a religion. This is not a tradition. The Torah is telling us exactly how the universe is structured beyond our senses. So maybe we don't understand the rules always, but How many of us do really understand how our smartphone is functioning? How many of us do really understand the laws of electricity or nuclear physics? Even Newton laws, most of us don't understand them. Does that mean they're not valid? Of course they are. Everything inside us and around us is operating by these laws. When we simply understand and internalize the laws, we might function along the way. Not necessarily. One condition, and that's part of the laws. You have to break and submit and conquer your own Pharaoh and your own priest of honor. When you destroy your own Egypt, and how? Through the mitzvot. One, by putting judgment on the negativities. Do not kill, do not steal. That's on the negative. And two, in the positive, how do you destroy the darkness? Is by bringing in the light, the mitzvot, charity, Shabbat, honor your father and your mother. All of that stuff is not a religion. It's not a tradition. It's basically, how do you basically transform Egypt, Yitro, into the Kedusha system, the tree of life system. And this is basically the story of this parasha, which means, why do we see darkness, injustice, whatever? We see it because the world is not listening. And why do I see whatever I saw? So I can deal with my own reactions, my own Pharaoh, my own Yitro. I have to take over them. I need to transform them. I need to submit them under the holiness, my own job. Only then I'll be able to hear the advices and follow them. And then I will be able to see the voices. That is the promise for every human being. So just knowing what's right and what's wrong is not enough. How many doctors do you see smoking, eating totally unhealthy? They didn't learn it in school? Not so much. But still, they learn medicine, The fact that you know that something is wrong for you, does that mean you're not going to do that? Why are we doing that? Why brilliant people do horrible mistakes when they know what's right and what's wrong? I'm talking about those moments they know what's right and what's wrong. We have to admit and to understand the same way. There is the force of the tree of life, the system of Kedusha, of wholeness, of perfection that we have to tap into, and it's godly, and there is a God, and there is a human soul. And that system is very important for our well-being. Okay? On the other hand, you have to admit there is a dark system. And why is there a dark system? Because we were created in the image of God, and we need to earn the enlightenment, the Kedusha. And how do you do that? When you simply plague your own Pharaoh and your own Egypt till you conquer it by yourself. And then you can listen, then you can see, then you can hear, and then you find the way to the tree of life. And that's how individuals reach happiness. That's how society will reach happiness. And that's why we need to bring back God, the God of Mount Sinai revelation, back to our lives. It's a well-being that we're talking about. It's not about tradition and nice ideas. It's about survival. Not just survival, it's about really finding life. Wishing success to all of us. And that's how politics is going to become better. That's how society is going to become better, the only way. Thank you so much.